A brief story, just so you understand how Hollywood works. When I had written Ghost, I walked out of the commissary with a number of executives, and they turned to me as we were walking, and they said, "Bruce, we just want you to know that Ghost is the best script we have ever read." And I couldn't quite believe it, but I just felt, oh my God, this is extraordinary. I felt so wonderful, and I sort of floated away. About a week later, I was walking out of the commissary behind those same executives who were walking with another writer, and I was listening to them, and they said to the writer, "We just want you to know that your script is the best script we have ever read."
You know what I'm thinking? Why don't you and I, we sit down, we write the script over where it needs it.
You could write one of these.
There's nothing to it. All you do, you get an idea, you set down what you want to say on paper. Then you hire somebody else to fill in the commas and shit where they belong, if you're not positive yourself. Maybe fix up the spelling where you have some tricky words. Although, I've seen some scripts, I know the words weren't spelled right. There was hardly any commas in it at all. So I don't think that's too important. All right, you get to the end. You write in, fade out. You're done.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all there is to it. Then what the fuck do I need you for?
If you go to a store and buy a play by Tennessee Williams or someone, you can come home in your chair and open the play and read it and have a real experience with it. You haven't seen the play, but you've read it. Well, the same thing should be true of a good screenplay. You bring it home, sit in your chair, and you should have an experience with that because the writer has created a play.
The most difficult thing a screenwriter does, which is the most difficult thing in movie making, is to make a precise, detailed decision. It's easy to say, let's have an exciting chase along the beach here where he finds out that his partner is going to betray him. And the person who says that thinks, I'm a genius. I just came up with a scene. That's not hard. Anybody can do that after a while watching movies.
Screenwriting is kind of invisible. If screenwriting is done really, really well, it seems like the actors made up their lines and that the director knew to put the camera there and that the movie sort of came together all by itself.
There's so much to master, from character to dialogue to plot to theme to concept. And it's this machine with a lot of levers and buttons, and when you're starting out, it takes a long time to master all those things and play them, like a pipe organ, well, all at the same time.
The screenplay is mathematical. It is like music, and it is precise. It's not like a novel. It's not like free-form poetry. It happens in time. It starts and it ends. And you write it over a long period of time, but you experience it in a finite period of time.
Movies are more or less 2 hours long, give or take. Well, that's like telling the painter how big your canvas is every time. But you can, in that 2 hours, you can tell a wonderful tiny little story, or you can tell a huge, gigantic epic.
When I write a screenplay, I always write an outline beforehand because films are architecture and you need to get your blueprint down, which is your outline, or else you're going to be completely lost.
Screenplays are structure and their story, and that's all they are. And the quality of writing, which is crucial in almost every other form of literature, it's not what makes a screenplay work.
You're like the architect, but they're building the building. And sometimes they decide, you know what, that's not quite the building we want. We're going to bring in somebody else to sort of design the new gazebo.
If you're a purist and you don't want your words touched, you should either be a playwright or an author. Because if you're going to be a screenplay writer and expect that your words are going to be treated like gold, that's just not reality.
The writer in Hollywood is truly, a abused entity, and it can be said any number of times and ways, and it gets boring, and it's gone back to the beginning of Hollywood. It is really cruel on some levels that writers have so little participation in the work they create.
part of the kind of surrealistic experience in Hollywood is that the originator of the material, from the moment everyone else claims to love it, is then the subject of an attempt to remove them from the material as much as possible.
When the Writers Guild started, all that time back, the writers were the low man on the totem pole, and not only that, the producer's girlfriend had a better chance of getting a writing credit than any writer ever did.
I actually think that the writer isn't even at the bottom of the totem pole. They're at the part that they stick in the ground, and then there's the totem pole.
The crap that a screenwriter has to endure, sometimes in the early days, sometimes not. Sometimes you're treated well then too. But the potential for that crap never goes away.
A lot of guys get used and abused. A lot of guys come up with ideas, but they can't pull them off, so they're rewritten and they're dumped. And it's a rough game. It's a real rough game.
I wrote a spec sci-fi script a couple years ago. I'm a big sci-fi fan, and I wrote it, and I decided it was going to be the first of a trilogy, and I'd kind of worked out what the other two were going to be, and we went out with it as a spec, and I kept getting the most interesting responses from people. I kept getting, people would call up and say, well, we want to talk about it. And I say, okay, where does this come from? What, did you adapt this from a book? It feels like you adapted it from a book, or is it from a comic book? And I said, well, no, I mean, I sat down and I wrote it, and they said, but it's so detailed, and it feels like it's such a world. I mean, and I said, yeah, motherfucker, I'm a writer. I mean, what do you think we do?